Welcome back to Beyond Belief. You won't believe who's here this week. Welcome back to Beyond Belief, guys. I am so excited today. I have absolutely the best first guest for my podcast. He is a businessman, he is a man of God, he is one of the hardest working individuals I've ever met, and I am so blessed to call him my little brother. We have Cory Mauldin. Cory, welcome to the Beyond Belief podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. It's actually it's an honor to be able to be a part of this and be your first guest. So I very much appreciate that.
Well, absolutely. And Cory, I'm gonna ask for anyone else. Outside of the podcast, we've talked several times about how much I knew that I wanted you to be the very first person I have on my podcast. Um, it's funny as brothers, obviously we support each other, but truly, I think you are and have been my biggest supporter. And in the same way, I'm also your biggest supporter. Or try everything I can. So all the support. I mean, even the screen I got going on behind me that we got to work today, it's all because you gifted that to me for Christmas because you knew this podcast was on my heart. So I'm thankful for all you do.
Well, I don't know why you talking me up so big like this. It's different. No, we've all, you know, I don't. Wow. Okay.
It's okay. Look, I've been doing this for 20 something episodes now, so I've learned to ramble on camera. It's a little more challenging than I think either of us could imagine. But Cory, I want to just jump in. And obviously, the title of my podcast, which, funny enough, you helped me with picking, is
Yeah.
Beyond Belief. And one of the things I would like to do when I have a guest is ask, what is one moment you had where, whether it was a moment with God or a moment where you saw God moving, that just was beyond belief for you?
Well, that's a very easy one. I think back to 2020, early in 2020. I believe it was the second Sunday of 2020. It might have been the third. It was on a Sunday night. Our mother, she had broken back, and so I don't remember what exactly was broke, but there's like two bones that were broke and fractured in her back. So she was going in to get scheduled for surgery, and I remember just the Holy Spirit had moved in our church, and our pastor, Apostle Don McClintock, had called for a healing line, and we put a chair. He said that the Lord showed him a chair, so we put a chair there in the middle aisle, and our mother, sat there in that chair. And next thing I know, my mother's up jumping, okay, and spinning and dancing, and I'm just like, what? And I remember just standing there, like looking at her, and I beginning to start crying because I've listened to her yell and scream in pain and can't move, and just go from that to that instantaneously. It absolutely blew my mind.
Wow, that is such a phenomenal beyond belief moment. You know what's crazy about that story, Cory? Um, I didn't know that until like a year later. Like we're talking, our mom didn't communicate. I didn't know she had an issue with her back, and I didn't know she was healed. I remember, um, I was in a church service, and Apostle mentioned, think about to the time that the Lord healed Heather's back, and I look at mom and I'm like, when did something happen to your back? Because I had absolutely no idea that had happened. And so to know that, just what a huge turnaround it is. And not only that, but that you were there to witness that is just so impactful.
Yeah, it's one of those life changing moments, and you hear people talk about those all the time. But when you're physically, mentally, like you see it in front of your face, there's no denying that. And just the change. I mean, it's just the true, real move of God, not an emotional feeling and not a motivational, but the real move of God. I mean, there's just no denying. It's beyond belief.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of other things beyond belief, Cory, you've had some pretty miraculous healings in and of yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
remember the time with your arm? Um, I believe I was still living in Kansas City at that time, but I saw all the video clips, and yins were blowing up my phone when it happened. Do you want to share some about that as well?
Yeah, so I was working for a company and it was winter, so there was snow on the ground, so we weren't doing any concrete or anything like that. And the company was actually moving locations, and so we was in the back and we were moving some pipes around with a forklift and like a loader, and all of a sudden I don't even remember what we were swinging on this lift to move it, but it was steel beams. I knew to know that. Um, and I just remember we went to turn, and all of a sudden, my hand in the steel beam, and then another piece of metal just absolutely just got crushed, and it hurt, and like immediately my hand started swelling, and it broke. Obviously, it broke. You put a human bone in between two pieces of steel, and it's probably not a good outcome, you know.
Right.
And so, I go inside. It's a bigger company, and so they're like, "Well, you have to go to the hospital." So I'm like, "No, I'm okay." And then, well, within 5 minutes, it started swelling up. So like, no, you have to go. Like, you have to. So I went. Sure enough, broke, crushed. So they put me in a cast. And I don't remember what day that was that had happened. I remember they had put me in a cast and gave me, medication that I take to help with the swelling, pain, all that kind of stuff. And I remember, going to church and, I've seen all this stuff happen with my mom and I've been healed with my shoulder got healed. And I just remember it was a Sunday night, I believe. Or maybe it was a Wednesday. It was either Sunday or a Wednesday. It was crazy. And our pastor had said, Cory, do you believe God can get the glory out of this? And I said, yes. And she said, come here. So the whole church began to pray. And next thing I know, which I should mention before service, um, there was a knot on the top of my hand. It had swelled up so the cast they gave me, it was a hard cast on the bottom side, but the top side, it was just like, I don't know what kind of padding that they put, and then it was just a bandage wrap.
Hmm.
And so, because it was still swelling, they didn't want to put a hard cast because even though it was broke with all the swelling, that's what they decided to do. So, by the time we got to church on whatever day, so it had been a couple of days because I had to deal with this for a few days and it was miserable. Um, it was like a softball on top of my hand, and it's on video recording of this happening. I literally take the cast off in the middle of service, and I was completely healed. The swelling was gone, the pain was gone. I could open my fingers. I remember our pastor when she was praying, she like did this with my hands, and I remember that moment. That hurt. That hurt. That did not feel good. That hurt so bad, and I'd like to think I have a pretty good pain tolerance. I don't know how I didn't start crying or I didn't pass out because that hurt. But as the power of God moved, I was healed instantaneously yet again. And so that's another beyond belief moment for you.
I love that, and honestly, I remember I've watched the video a couple of times, and it really feels like you see the knot on your wrist like
Mhm.
start to go down. I mean, it was such a powerful moment to see. Um, Speaking of powerful moments, I don't want to just talk about healings and everything. While I mean, these are important stories, don't get me wrong. I want to talk about more about your journey coming back to Christ because I think there's a powerful testimony in that. I've mentioned
Huh.
a couple of times on the podcast, I myself was definitely running from the Lord at one point, and I would love to hear about you coming back and turning into this amazing man of God that you are today.
I appreciate you saying that. So I guess to get to coming back, we need to know why I left. And so I remember I think I was 15 or 14 years old. And I remember our inner family, we had stopped going to church. Um, Not really. I don't even remember why. I know we had made the move, and this was years after the move. We just never found a church. Didn't really look for a church, to be honest. But I remember my uncle. was deeply involved in this ministry, and not the ministry I'm in now, but a ministry. And my uncle kind of began to disciple me a little bit. And so I was on fire for God at a young age, but the problem was is I had no covering.
Mm,
And not necessarily that like my uncle wasn't good enough, because that's not the case at all, but I just didn't have a spiritual covering to keep me covered. And so I remember one specific day that I had asked God to put me on trial. Um, and that is where it all went wrong for me, really. There was a certain situation that was around me, and because I was reading and I was praying and I was doing all these great things. I think I was preaching on Facebook Live or whatever back in the day. I don't think you could go live. I think I just posted videos. I'd like have church. I'd have my guitar and I'd sing a couple of songs, and then I'd give a word and I post it or whatever. I don't know. I hope they're all gone. I hope no one can
mm.
see those ever. But um, but I was so ignorant in that time because I didn't understand spiritual warfare. I didn't understand the attacks of the enemy. I didn't understand anything. And let alone, I literally just asked God to put me on trial. Why in the world would I do that? And I fell miserably. And so from the time of 14 um, to uh, 14, 19, 19, 20, I think I was 20 years old whenever I came back to the Lord. Um, from that moment, I did nothing but drink, have sex with women, party, fight, you name it. I was doing it, part of it. And so that went on until, well, I come back to Christ. And even afterwards, I'm not perfect. I still struggle with drinking. I still struggle with lust. When I first came back to the Lord. So that's those things aren't you feed. I fed myself and fed myself and fed myself, and so a lot of things change instantly, but not everything. And so I remember a certain situation that happened right after high school, and I was like, I'm out. And I remember I worked at McDonald's through high school for I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, something like that. And I remember I was done. I'm leaving town. So that's what I did. I quit my job and I moved. And I went back to our hometown I literally was there maybe 2 weeks and then I moved to Texas. And in Texas, all I did was party more, drink more, the women, everything. And I just found myself in such a pit. Um, I ended up meeting someone down there, and uh, during that time, our father had passed away, and that's a whole another thing that we could get into at another episode, maybe. But so that was that whole thing. And after our father had died, I made the decision that I had to come home. So I did stay another year after that. But so I got this girl, thought I was in love. It was lust, not love. And I'm like, I want to come home. So she moved with me back up here. And that did not last too awful long after that. That was a very bad situation. And then our mother had just come back to Christ. And so this was now we're to I want to say November of 2019, and so our mother had started going back to church, and her testimony is phenomenal on how what led her back and how she got to where she's at now. Um, but so New Year's Eve 2019 come,
Mhm.
my mother asked me, "Hey, will you please come with me? We're gonna do a New Year's bash, gonna get food, music. It's gonna be a great time. Would you please come? I want you to see where I've been going to church." I wanted to go party. There was a party with my so-called friends. I wanted to go get drunk. I wanted to say, "Hey, you don't know what's going to happen. You know this person's going to be there. Let's see what happens." Well, because I just wanted decided to be a good son, I just wanted to be respectful to my mom. It's like, yeah, fine, I'll go. So I ended up going, and I knew when I was in there that this is where I was supposed to be. And just the encounter with God and the presence and what I felt conviction, but I felt love and I felt peace and um, I felt the sense of home in a sense, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
And so I remember actually because I rode with my mom and our other brother went as well. And I remember I was still dipping tobacco at the time, and so I remember I was like, well, I had enough respect. This is what really God showed me not too long ago is I still had enough respect that I didn't take that inside the church. I left it in the car at least. But I remember afterwards, I like went back to the car. I'm like, I need a dip. So I go back to the car when it's over, and I'm like, where is our mom? Like, where is she?
Mhm.
She was serving. And I'm like, I'm ready to go home. What? She's like, no, we serve. I'm like, you serve, I don't. I'm ready to go. And so I remember she, of course, waited because I was with her. And I remember going home, and I think I missed the next Sunday. And I was like, I felt that conviction of that's where I was supposed to be. And then I went the next Sunday, and I've probably since 2020, uh, I've missed maybe 5 Sundays, um, maybe six at the very most since. And not out of a religious thing, but out of my relationship with Christ and what He's done and the transformation He's had in my life.
Absolutely. What an awesome story, Corey. We gotta talk more often. I mean, I know we're brothers and we have have a scheduled call time, but man, what a phenomenal story. Um, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and you're right, I think if we talked about our dad, that could be a podcast or two in and of itself. But I did want to mention that slightly because I think there is something about that time where obviously we suffered a tremendous loss, but I think it was a catalyst for our whole family, all three of us brothers especially, to actually come together. Um, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think we all three of us were living our own lives very separate from one another, and there was a lack of brotherly love. Like obviously, if we needed and like needed to be there for one another, I think we absolutely were. But there was definitely a vast separation, which is why right now I said we need to share more stories because your testimony there's so much of that even as your older brother I wasn't a part of. And I think there's probably just as much that I could share with you, and same with Eli.
Yeah.
But tell me some more about because you've mentioned it before about how many times you prayed for me, and I know that covering was intense. But what was it that really started that fire to pray for me to come back to Christ? Because I would love to just hear more about that for myself, yet alone for the podcast.
So it goes back really years ago. I remember when like we'd get around and start talking about church, and our mom and our grandpa and our grandma would sit around and say that you used to just go around the house carrying a Bible in your hand preaching when you was like 3 years old. You know, you'd stand on the coffee table or you'd stand on the couch and just start preaching.
Hmm.
Of course, you couldn't speak at the time, so it was I don't know, but you throw that Bible, I guess, and just absolutely get after it. And so, and then really, I don't remember what year it was. You're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about because it's when you got baptized in the Holy Spirit and started speaking in tongues for the first time.
Hmm.
I remember it was at church camp,
I was
and I
13.
remember it was a. I don't. I think the theme of that year was "Live Like That" because there's that song. I want to live like that. See,
I
I'm
think
not
it
a
is,
music,
yeah.
you know. Yeah. Anyways, it's good. Great song. You need to listen to it. It's powerful. Um, but I just remember it was an incredible night. I don't remember. It was probably towards the last night because you know how everything goes. Whenever you're, dwelling in God's presence, and each day people are hungry and hungry and hungry, and then it just explodes.
Hmm.
And I just remember that night. Everyone was up at the altar, and I remember Pastor Jerry. He has been in our life for as long as I can remember.
Hmm.
And I just remember that he just kept. He's a man of God, is what he is. He's not just a pastor; he's a man of God. And I remember him just praying with you and saying, "Come on, Tyler, you got it. let it flow, just let it speak. And he just start praying over you and covering you. And next thing I know, you're speaking in tongues. I'm, yeah, this is awesome. And then, but that, see, that fire, that did something in me because we used to be a part of Church of God of Prophecy, and that's who this church camp was through.
Mhm.
And I just have so many great memories from so many people that I still love and care about. And I haven't talked to them in years, but they still hold a place in my heart. Um, but I remember after that, because of what got on you, I wanted that so bad. And I remember we had I think it's the annual or yearly conference for that. It
Mhm.
like landed at the same time that church camp ended. Like everyone left there and went to the convention or conference, or I don't know what they're called. And I remember they did an altar call and I ran to that altar. I just remember yelling like while I was praying, but I thought I was speaking in tongues, but really I was just yelling. And I just wanted it so bad. And that was all because of what I've seen happen to my brother.
Wow.
And then, so if you were 13, that means I was 11, 10 or 11, somewhere in there. And so that stuck with me for, I mean, over 10 years now. And so I've always thought, I mean, realistically, I've always just thought you were better than me, like a better person, um, a more likable person, like all these things. I thought, not necessarily in like a demeaning way of like I'm nothing, but I look up to you and I know what you can do. I know what you're capable of, even when you don't see it. And and so whenever I left to go do my own thing, you're right. Me, you, and Eli separated. I remember while I was in Texas for the 3 years or 3 or 4, however it works out. I don't remember ever speaking to you on the phone in that time frame. I know that there were a couple. There has to have been, I hope, but I don't remember none of it. I remember talking to our grandma and our mom whenever you moved to Kansas City into the dorms when you were going to school up there. I remember a conversation with one of them, not you, when they helped you move in. But other than that, I don't remember nothing. Like, and it's because I was so selfish. And I was only worried about what I could do, what someone can do for me, and that was it. Could care less. I was so selfish, and of course, I still help people, but in like I'm selfish. That's just the only way to put it. Maybe I was an awful person. I don't know, but once I came back to Christ, um, you were just missing. It's it was great and it was phenomenal, but my brother is lost. And after experiencing the loss of our dad, and something I still struggle with, that is I don't know where our dad's at. And when you pass, there's two options. And that scares me to death still today. And it's something I have to, obviously pray about. Not for my dad, he's gone now. There's nothing I can do. I can't change nothing. I can't change what he's done. I hope to God that he repented. I hope that there's just stuff with that. And so sometimes fear tries to creep in and ask me about that. And because of that, I immediately thought of my family, my uncles, my grandpa, because my other grandpa's gone, my grandma's, my, you know, my aunts. Um, and I'm not saying that they're not right with the Lord, but I look at them and I looked at you and Eli at the time, and all I felt was grief. And it was your souls were hanging in the balance.
Mm.
And if God can do it for me, he can do it for you. And so I remember that I kept trying to invite you. And he was like, I'm not coming down. Yeah, no. And then you would come down to see us, but you would not go to church. And I just remember, I don't remember what service was. I don't even remember who was preaching, but they were talking about your brothers and sisters that need to be in the house. And I remember that whatever it was that day just ignited something in me, and I will not stop until you are here. I remember you going to school to be a lawyer at the time, and you were trying to do all that. And I was like, God, he's not supposed to be there. He needs to be here. I said, God, I don't know what you have in store for his life. I don't know what he's supposed to be, but I promise you that he is supposed to be in this church. And I understand, like, not everyone is meant for the same church. Not everyone's called to our leaders. Not everyone's called to this ministry. But I knew that you were. And I know that a lot of people's like, I want my whole family in our church. And I understand that desire. But sometimes those are just desires,
Right.
you know. But I just knew that you were meant to be in this church. And I just kept praying and I would not stop. I apologize for that. I thought that was needed. Um, I would not stop it. And then you came. And I remember that first time you came, Pastor David preached a word called Prisoner No More. And I remember I was sitting by you because our mom, I believe she had to work because our mom's a nurse. She works crazy hours,
Hmm.
bless her heart. And she watches our nephew during the day. She never sleeps. Don't know how she does it. But she she wasn't there. I remember it was just me and you. And all of a sudden, it was at the end of service. I think an altar call had already happened. I remember you started speaking in tongues. And I lost my crap when that happened because I'm like, God, he's not all the way, but you're still working, you're still in him. So I began to pray even more because that was you can say sign or I can't think of the other word that I wanted that it made confirmation
Hmm.
of not only the spirit that's in our church, but what what he's doing in my life and in my family's life. And so that just absolutely just it made my year. Like I was still getting so excited just thinking about it because I watched it happen in front of me. And I just remember after that, I asked you about, I said, you spoke in tongues, right? And you said, yeah. And you did not say another word on it. And then you left, went to Kansas City. And I remember I asked you to come back. And you said, no. Nah. So it was a couple more months. So this is getting you to be there was over a year process. But I knew that if I stayed persistent, that it would come to pass. Um, and I know there's a scripture, and I can't think of it, but it's about the prayers of the righteous. And that's the scripture I keep thinking of, but I just can't remember where it's at. We need Pastor Jason.
We'll
Uh,
phone him next time.
yeah, we'll see if he listens to this because he'll comment on it. Um, Veileth much is how it ends, I think. But anyways, besides the point, God gave me glimpses of things as I continued to pray. Things begin to move, and then eventually you're like, I have to be here. And what'd you do? You moved here with no job, no home, nothing, and you went several days without a job, but God came through for you, and now you're thriving. And we're starting a second business together. Um, and I mean, it's just endless what we can do with God. So,
What's so funny, Corey. I remember you and Ma. Every time I would come down, man, you guys are like, "You going to church?" And I'd be like, "Sure ain't," because I knew. I mean, considering how much of my life I feel like I spent in church, I knew that if I kept going to a church, there's no way I could keep living the lifestyle I was living, and I wasn't ready to give that lifestyle up. Which
yeah.
I think, in and of itself, is something so many people can relate to.
Yeah.
Is um, in a running season, you don't want to be reconnected because you're trying
Hmm.
to run. And I remember that moment with Pastor David as well, because I don't remember what my face looked like, obviously, but I remember he had prayed for, or like came up to pray for me for some reason, because I was still in the
Well,
row.
so I still remember clear as day what happened. He was preaching and he had his arm on the pulpit like this, and my camera's backwards, so this is actually my left side. And he was had the mic like this, and he was preaching.
Hmm.
You saw it, he took off towards you, and it was, I mean, it was awesome. I still remember that to a T.
And there's two messages I remember really before coming to the church. It's that one, and then one that I find so many people from our church relate to, and that is the compass message that prophetess preached. And I remember, I can't tell you what happened in the message. I just remember there was a moment prophetess had that compass in her hand, and she's like, "You have to follow your compass." And I know she was on the podium, Corey, but I promise it felt like she was right in my face. And I really reflected on this recently because I knew I wanted to bring it up on the podcast. I think what it was, and it's why I didn't want to go to the church, is it was the re-softening of my heart that I had tried to make stone, but the reality is, um, I was blessed to be saved at 4 and baptized in the Holy Spirit at 13, and there was so much inside of me that it was hard for me to stay in the world. And it's because I
Yeah.
had a brother like you praying and trying to continue to pull me in that I couldn't um, live the life I thought I was going to live. And thank you for, I guess, getting me waitlisted for law school because it sounds like you're the reason.
Well, hey,
Uh,
we got a we got our own book of laws.
we get our own book. Oh, jeez. All right. Well, I that is some really great stuff. We're running out of time on this Zoom call here. So I want to just talk about one more kind of funny it's not a funny story. It's a news story. And are you on TikTok, Corey? I assume you're not. I don't feel like you would be.
Not really.
Yeah, okay. So first off then, two questions. Do you know what group you're assigned to?
So I just seen this and I have no idea what this means. I just started flying last year and I was like, well, normally I'm group 7 or 8. So is that what this is? We talking about we in the same income bracket here, so those are the tickets we buy?
Okay, no. So there is this girl, and I apologize to her. I don't remember her name, but she made, I think it's 7 videos, and she assigns you a group. She's an indie artist, so she's doing it as a way to kind of hype up her album that's going to be released, and each group's supposed to support one specific song or whatever. But
Nah.
TikTok is absolutely wild. I got the video that, hey, you are assigned group 7, and that is all my TikTok is right now, is everyone saying group 7. Apparently we're the elite group. If you're another group, I only learned you exist because I went to the girls TikTok to make sure there were other group names.
Can she even sing?
I couldn't tell you.
Then what's it?
Hey, the promotion has to be working if my whole feed is just, all right, group 7, good morning, how are we going to spend the day? All right,
I
group
mean, it
7,
ain't working if no
anytime.
one knows about the music and they just know about the groups.
Well, welcome to trending on TikTok. I don't know what else to tell you.
That's stupid. I'll say it.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
It's probably a sign I need to get off TikTok more. It might have to put some limits back to where we're only on TikTok to post beyond belief content. um, let's see. I thought there was another news story that I wanted your take on it because I thought it'd be funny, and I can't think of it, so it must not have been that funny. Well, Corey, as we're coming to a close of time, I want to say thank you so much for being on my podcast. Uh, I love you, truly. I mean, you're one of the best littlest brothers I can have outside of all that Eli is, because I don't want Eli to feel left out. Because if there was a lottery for brothers, I won it twice. Um, I, I can't imagine my life without you two. I honor and appreciate you both. Um, there's so many things that I learn from you every single day. Um, the man of God you are. There's just so much that uh, I see in you that I want for myself, and I hope to grow to be just as strong a man in God as you are. Um, but I want to give you a time, Corey. Tell me what you have going on in your life. Is there anything that the people of Beyond Belief need to reach out to you for? We would love to hear it.
Um, well, I guess if you're in the Springfield, Missouri area or within a 100-mile radius of here, and you would love a concrete patio, yeah, definitely check my website out at www.mauldinconstruction.com. That's my business. I've been in business for now for 2 years. I do all things concrete except foundations. Um, and yeah, I mean that's about it. Nothing crazy. We just get work done.
Absolutely. And I will say, guys, he had me on a concrete crew for one job. And Corey, do you think I make the cut for someone good in concrete, or should
Next question.
I'll stick to podcasting.
I plead the I
That's what
plead
I'll
the
say.
fifth.
I'm not gonna lie. I think I told you you work
Don't even
hard,
pay
but
me. I remember on that job, I was paying everybody for helping me that day, and you said, "Don't pay me.
I mean,
You're
look,
good. Just
I
I'm
worked
glad I
as
got
hard as I
a little
could, but
bit."
I did not feel like I earned
No,
money.
that
Um,
was a really big job. That was a pickleball court and a basketball court, and it turned out amazing. But yeah, I still appreciate the help. I couldn't have done it without you and the other guys, so it was awesome to do.
Absolutely. Well, Corey, I think clearly we need to have another episode with you on, so we will work on scheduling that. I won't do it immediately, so I know you didn't want to have two back to back, so we'll work on scheduling you maybe next season, if we don't have time this one. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Nice to see ya.
All right, bye.